All right, I think we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome, everyone. It's kind of nice to see being at an event where everyone tries to sit down front instead of trying to crowd in the back rows. So rarely do you see the back rows empty. So my name's Thomas Sally. I'm one of the board members for the Existential Analysis Society of Canada, and it's our privilege to be with Alfred Langle tonight. At the outset, I would like to acknowledge the traditional territories of the Coast Salish people of this land. I'd also like to acknowledge Providence Healthcare and St. Paul's, particularly for hosting tonight's event. For those that don't know, the Existential Analysis Society here in Canada, it's the local affiliate of the GLE, the International Society of Logotherapy and Existential Analysis in Europe. And our group here helps support and coordinate the seminars and the training, both basic and advanced, for existential analysis, of which Dr. Langle is supervising presently those cohorts in that work. If you'd like to hear more information on that, and you're not a part of our newsletter already, feel free when you leave tonight to put your name and email address down, and we'll add that. And there are seminars and workshops and trainings both for professionals and non-professionals. So we're trying to offer quite a few offerings to kind of climb into this material, of which if you haven't had a taste, you will tonight with Alfred. With that, let me just introduce our professor this evening. Dr. Langle was born in Austria in 1951 and studied medicine and psychology at the universities of Innsbruck, Rome, Toulouse, and Vienna. After years of hospital work in general medicine and psychiatry, he started a private practice in psychotherapy, general medicine, and clinical psychology in Vienna. At the same time, he began his close collaboration with Viktor Frankl. He is the founder and president of the International Society for Logotherapy and Existential Analysis in Vienna. Dr. Langle is a constant lecturer at the universities of Vienna, Moscow, Santiago de Chile, and Mendoza. He is also the founder of the state-approved training school of existential analytical psychotherapy and was the vice president of the International Federation of Psychotherapy from 2002 to 2010. Dr. Langle has over 300 scholarly publications to his credit. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Langle this evening.
Thank you, Thomas, for introducing and organizing this evening. Hello, everybody. I'm very pleased to be here and to meet you and to be able to talk with you and to reflect with you upon a specific theme which is interesting for all of us, I think. Let's talk about, no, not sex. Let's talk about life. I don't switch the theme, but it's also a sexy theme, I think. So, life, human life, what is it? Heinrich Heine once said that human life isn't simply something. It's the chance for something. This is quite an existential thinking to put into the intermediate between of me and my life, the term chance. Chance means that this is a challenge, a possibility. There's something like freedom in between me and my life. It's not done simply by being born. We are not determined by nature, instincts, as we see the life of animals is. We have a specific kind of life. The human life is has to be constructed, has to be formed, guided, and the main person in our life are we ourselves. Everyone has a chance to change life to a certain degree, of course. We are not totally free, but relatively free. We all have possibilities. And to see the possibilities and to apply them constructively in our life, this is what this is our task. This is our challenge. So, in an existential approach to psychology and in an existential view of life, it is very central to see the term of freedom, of choice, of decision, which are specific terms of freedom, to see freedom in the center of our life, which is, when we ask ourselves what is essential or characteristic for the human being, we can say, or at least in the existential perspective, we see freedom, the human freedom, to be central. The fact that we experience that we are not forced to do what we do. And if we are forced, we feel awkward. Why? Because it doesn't correspond to our essence, to what we really are. So we all have a strong tendency to work on maintaining, keeping our freedom, enlarging it, make use of it, and live in a way that what we do freely does correspond to ourselves, has connection to ourselves, to make use of our freedom in a way that we can see ourselves in the mirror, that we can detect ourselves in what we do. This is a difference to arbitrary act. To make a free choice in a way that this is really my life, my choice, that it corresponds to who I am, means to make a responsible decision. So freedom and responsibility are corresponding terms. We do not have to be responsible. We are not forced to act responsibly. We are so free that we can act irresponsibly. We are so free that we can become guilty, which means acting irresponsibly. But we have the chance to be responsible. We have the chance to do things which are constructive, which lead to a intensification of values, of a worthy life. This chance is ours. But how can we realize that? This is the theme of our talk tonight. Sometimes we experience, or people come to us and say, I don't see the meaning in what I do. I see no more meaning in continuation of my relationship, for instance. It's so bothering. It's so terrible that I don't want to continue because it has no more meaning. Or in the job, the same may happen there, that people come, or we may experience, it's really meaningless. Why should I continue? Why should I do this nonsense day after day? It makes me sick. We may even experience, or people may come and say, I don't see any meaning in my life at all. It's so boring, all this struggling and this effort and this suffering and losing and so why should I continue? It has no meaning. And not finding meaning in life is really a hard issue because it is a lethal, a mortal existential experience. It leads to suicide. Suicidal people suffer from not seeing meaning in in that life in which they are. We all may have suicidal tendencies. It may happen in every life that we undergo difficult situations or that we do not see any future for the moment. We lose the hope, and we can become suicidal, and Maybe most of us already thought once in a difficult situation, how would it be if I committed suicide? Then it would be over. I wouldn't have to carry along the weight or to suffer or to be disoriented and so on. It would be, what a relief death can be. Suicidal persons know that. And death as a hope. And if there is no meaning in life which holds us back, then we are prone to even try suicide or commit it. So meaning is a really existential tie which vinculates us with existence, with our life. Meaninglessness, therefore, is a deep suffering, a crucial suffering, which we cannot support for a longer time. We come to reactions if we become sick if we have to suffer from meaninglessness, and we do whatever we can to change meaningless situations. So when people suffer from meaninglessness in a relationship, for instance, they are ready to go, to change the relationship, because it's unbearable to continue in a meaningless situation. But what does it mean? Let us try to understand this experience or this feeling of meaninglessness. When we have a feeling of something is meaningless, what does that say? If something is meaningless, it says, I don't see a value in what I do or what I have to undergo. It's not worthy for me. And I don't see what, at the end, that there comes out a value. So it's for nothing. The feeling of meaninglessness means I do or experience something for nothing. So if we have this feeling of meaninglessness, this can be translated in existential terms as if I continue that way, if I continue that direction, this will lead to nothing. This will lead to a dead end. I do not experience the value right now, and or I don't see the value which will come out at the end. Why should I continue this relationship, for instance, if day after day we are hassling, struggling, if there is no pleasure, no fun, no warmth in it, no real dialogue? Then we do not experience any value. And why should I continue something which has no value? The human being is constructed such that we want to understand what we do. If we do not understand, this means a rejection, a devaluation of our rationality. We are free beings, and as free beings, we have to make decisions. And to make decision means I have to know about what is going on to make a decision which fits into that situation. Otherwise, I could throw the coin and follow what comes up. But a real decision means I am investing myself, I am investing my time, I am connecting myself, I have to pay for it, to suffer for it, and I will gain something, I hopefully will gain something. So therefore I must be oriented so that for the sake to come to to a good end. Meaninglessness means when I look around, this doesn't lead to anything. There will no good shows up. I experience it day after day. What is the benefit of what I do? So, investment of time, of energy, undergoing suffering is impossible for a human being when we do not see the why. Why am I doing it? And the why can only be a value which shows up, something good. I may have difficulties in a relationship, and we may have problems, and this is normal in a good relationship. In any good relationship, there show up problems. But the quality of a relationship shows up in the fact that we are able to deal with the problems and to dialogue them, to face them, to work them through, that we are capable to resolve obstacles. This is the quality of a good relationship. The quality is not that we never have a problem, but that we can resolve them. As long as I see that we can resolve a problem, as long as I see a value in the future. Meaning means, the feeling of meaning means I have the feeling, the hope, the perception that something good will show up at the end. We will work it through, we will struggle, maybe we will undergo a hard time, but at the end it will be good. And also when we have to undergo a difficult disease, we can hope that at the end there will be I will be healed. And then the value is there for which we are waiting. This gives us orientation. Meaning in itself means, in the existential understanding, means that we are directed towards meaning. It is like a sign which points towards a value in the future. So, in other words, if I continue that way in my relationship or in my job or in my life, the way I live, if I continue that way, this direction will lead me to a value. I will gain a value. I follow this track, I follow this way, and it will lead me home, it will lead me to the city I want to go, it will lead me to that quality of relationship which I want to have, which I am longing for. It will lead me to the self-development in my job. It will lead me to that amount of money which I will earn, etc., etc. Values, a value is something which is good for me, which is worthy, and so as long as I can see or feel or intend or hope for a value, as long something is meaningful. So, if I suffer from meaninglessness, this means that the direction I am going leads to nothing, leads into a desert, but not to the oasis. You understand what is meaning? Existential meaning is an orientation towards a valuable life, experience, action. A value must be felt, must be visible, must be seen, must be intended. Having no meaning means either I do not feel the value right now, there may be values, but I don't experience them, or I don't see them in the future. Nothing will turn out. Either in the present there is no value, or in the future there is no value. But this is very helpful because the term meaning, purpose and meaning, this sensing of a value, this term is quite tricky in English, in German. It's not so difficult in Latin languages like in Spanish. Meaning, the word for meaning in Spanish is senso, or in Italian, or in French, le sens. For them, it's clear, because they use that term constantly. And if you go through Buenos Aires, you see streets where it is written unique meaning, senso unico, which means one way. Meaning, senso, in the Latin languages, means literally to be directed, to have a direction. In German, Sinn, it is more difficult. It is the older understanding is lost. And in English, you need even 2 or 3 words to describe senso: meaning, purpose, and sense. So, sense is a bit closer to that experience of a value. Meaning is very abstract, and purpose is close to a function. Senso, direction. Have a direction. If I have a direction in my life, then my life is meaningful. And when my life is meaningful, I do not think about meaning anymore. I do not have to think. Because when Frank brought this example and said, when you are in a concert and listen to beautiful music, and you enjoy it, and your neighbor is hitting your shoulder and asking, do you think right now your life is meaningful? Then you would say, you are stupid. Listen to that music. That's not a question in that music. So when we are fulfilled by a value, when we experience a good value, then the question of meaning doesn't arise. When we are in a good relationship, that's not the question of meaning, doesn't show up. The term meaning shows up, or the questioning of meaning shows up when the direction is no longer good. So we are very sensitive for meaning. We feel it, and we feel it sometimes before we admit it consciously. The feeling is much finer than our thinking sometimes is. So we should not step over these feelings of meaninglessness. We are talking about meaning as an orientation in our life. And we understand now what it means on an existential level. We need meaning to be able to support and be motivated, to support what we have to undergo, and to be motivated to do something. Nietzsche once said, he who has a why can support almost every how. When I know why, what for, we can support almost any condition. And the life of Viktor Frankl is an example of that. To undergo concentration camps is very difficult. What is the meaning? So much suffering. This is really not a good life. Suffering, hunger, dehumiliation, and pain and hopelessness. How can people survive such situations? And sometimes we have difficult life situations even outside the concentration camp, which are so full of hopelessness. How can we support it? For Frankl, it were three elements which turn out, we can take them as an example, for the main roads to find meaning. One was, he really longed for rewriting his first book on logotherapy. So what I'm reporting here about meaning is taken from Frankl's notion, experience, and investigations. But he personally experienced that this was something which lifted him up, which raised his head, helped him to find the power, the energy to stand it through. The waiting, to have the possibility to write this book again, which he has already written but was lost when he was deported into the concentration camp. A book on which he wrote 4 years. So something valuable to do, something which is important, which is impacting one's life. The second was, he was longing to meet again his wife and his mother. He was together with his father. His father died in the concentration camp. He was almost present in that, or the night before he died. He met him for the last time. But he was eager to meet his mother and his wife again. He was just married 2 years before he was deported. And so this was the relational issue, the value of other persons, the value of experiencing something good in a relationship. It need not necessarily be in a relationship, but for him it was especially this. So this made him do whatever he could to survive. And the third was, Frankl has undergone a period of nihilism just before he came into the concentration camp. And then in the time when he was in the concentration camp, he started to become religious. And so it was his connection to God which helped him to overcome that situation. This means a connection to a deeper understanding of life, a connection which says, I know what for I am undergoing this, because life is something which I didn't produce myself. It's a gift, and with this gift, for this gift, I have a certain responsibility. These three elements are the nucleus of something which Frankl described before he went into the concentration camp on a theoretical basis of taking it from Max Scheler's philosophy. And then he had this experimentum crucis, this crucial experiment in life. He named it as being three main roads to meaning, three categories to find meaning. The one is the experiential values. They're always talking about values. Experiential value to experience something good. May it be relationship, may it be a music, may it be an encounter, may it be art or nature or a warm bath or a good food. Whatever I can experience as being good, makes my life actually good and therefore meaningful. It's worth living it. The second or the other leg on which we are standing is the productive values. To produce something valuable, to work, to write a letter, to make music, to clean the apartment, to cook a meal, to wash dishes, to make something productive. And to experience the value and to enjoy what we are creating. This makes our life very meaningful also. So experiencing and producing values gives orientation to our life, and these are the normal way how we construct our life. We look after good experiences, and we look for what we do is productive and brings out a value. And if we do not see the value, again, meaninglessness. But there are situations where both categories do not fit or are not applicable. For instance, when we are too depressive, or when we are in a deep grief and have lost somebody by a death or so, we are too paralyzed, too depressed, too out of ourselves to really be able to produce something productively, or we cannot enjoy any value. And then Frankl described a category which has to be learned during life, because we are not naturally born for them. We are born for enjoying meal and chocolate and so, and these experiential values and productive values. Already as a child, we play with our wooden blocks and so, and create things. So we are born, we are installed for these first two categories of experiential values and of productive values. But to face a fate, to face something which we cannot change and which leads to a loss, which makes us suffering, to face that, we have to learn to bear such frustrations, such losses. And we can learn it more or less. This is something children already have to learn with the 2 or 3 years, that they cannot get everything they want, and to learn to suffer. And it is a great challenge to the human being to deal with pain and suffering and losses. Why? Because by definition, this is a deconstruction of values. This is a loss of values. And what is a loss of value has no meaning. So how to continue when we do not see meaning, when we do not experience value? It is almost impossible. And it is important to admit that a loss of a value, to become sick, for instance, or to have an accident or so, has no meaning in itself, because it has no value. The possible meaning is in the way how I deal with it, to see it as a challenge. This makes us resilient. When we see things that happen to us as a challenge, as a stimulus to do something extra, to do something more, to make something out of it. We can, of course, we sometimes are paralyzed, but sooner or later, after the shock, we are still regaining our power, and the question is, what can I do that the negative is not escalating? That out of that what happened, that having a cancer, for instance, is not the end of my life. There is life with cancer, if I can admit it, if I can accept it, if I get ready. Of course, this is a great grief to lose and to let be all this what is gone now when when I come into such a situation. And it is good if we have people who accompany us when we have great losses, because alone it's sometimes too hard. Life can be too difficult if we have to undergo it by ourselves, alone. We are social beings. Even Frankl, who dedicated his life to the concept of meaning, even he had at least 2 situations in the concentration camp and after the concentration camp, a situation where he possibly would not have overcome the situation if he hadn't had somebody who accompanied him. Somebody who said to him in the concentration camp, take this soup, it was a bit salty, warm water with 1 pea pie in it, take this soup and eat. And they forced him to eat. Otherwise he would possibly have died. So this is not to be ashamed that we need others when we have to suffer from difficult life situations. But we can take them as a question, as a challenge, which I'm that what happens to us in an adversive which happens to us means that we are asked. And this is a background of understanding of meaning. So the third category, I come to this background in a minute. The third category means to deal with situations, unchangeable situations, where I cannot do any more. As long as I can treat the cancer, I should treat it. And this is meaningful. But when I cannot do it, or when somebody is dead, what can I do then? I can still do something. A little bit of freedom is left in the way I deal with it. When I cannot change the outer world, I still can change myself. And I can make decisions about my behavior. And this means maintain the human dignity, to live our essence of being free. And to find out the least possibilities we have where we can realize our freedom. This is so important. I remember a situation Frankl describes in his book on the concentration camp. In English, it's under the name Man's Search for Meaning, where he said they tried to destroy us, to humiliate us in the concentration camp. But what helped us was this little freedom which remained to us. But what was this little freedom? This little freedom was that when they have been called on the place before the barracks, when they have been called in the morning to advert the neighbor, the body, and say, do you see this red of the rising sun? Or to say, good morning. This was something human, something which could not be taken away. It was so little, but it let them feel that they are still persons and not numbers, not figures. And we have, in my experience, in my decades of experience in psychotherapy, I can say that many problems arise out of this, that people do not accept the little chance, possibility, value they have, because they want more. And it is so important that we can be humble and take the few we have. And if we do not have more, to live that few means we maintain our dignity, we live our essence, we keep upright. So this is the third category. When we are forced to deal with a difficult life situation, that we can change ourselves. We can work on our attitude in the sense that we stop the escalation of the negative. We can, of course, having lost a relationship or being incurably sick or so, we can react and behave differently. We can get drunk, or we can complain constantly and make the world around us furious, or we can behave in a way that we can look into our faces and keep up our self-image and be in harmony with ourselves, and that we can see ourselves, detect ourselves again in what we do. Or we can take it as something which we do for our religious belief, for God. There are many different ways. Or we can try to ease our children, our family, the caring, or whatever. So there are little elements, little aspects. There are these little good morning to the body, these small possibilities. But you know, the step from 0 to 1 is bigger than the step from 1 to 100. To step out of the passivity is so important. It's maybe not much I can do, but that little changes everything. I find this is very important. Of course, this may be a narcissistic trauma because I deserve more, or why should I deal with that little? But this means, this is the proof of our love for life. If we do it, even if it is little. If we care for a flower, even if it is a small one, and not the big rose. If we talk to somebody, to a child, even if I do not get paid or whatever. Attitudinal values was the term which Frankl gave this third category. The value is in the attitude, and the attitude, I'm changing myself when I cannot change the world, the situation, because there is death, because there is incurable disease or whatever. Then I can change myself. This is a possibility. We often need accompaniment to be able to realize it. But it is also important to know about it, that this is possible for human beings. Maybe not for me and not for now, but theoretically it is possible. And we can work on it, and we can mature in it. And then the more experienced we are in dealing with suffering, with pain, with losses, the more laid back we can deal with the life situations, with these losses. It's not a need to do it. It's a chance. It's a possibility. And it is therefore a human form to realize one's existence, because it is a chance. And I can decide for it, and I can decide for it responsibly. This means in a way that I can identify with it, because I find myself in it, because it corresponds to me. And this is so good if we do our life in such a way that I can find myself. Then I'm not lost. Then I'm encountering me. This is a great meaning of existence, that we can be in the world and are not lost, are not alone. That we are with ourselves in a constant relationship, in a resonance with ourselves. That we can become more ourselves in what we do. Why else should we be in the world than to be really in the world? We spoke about the three main roads to meaning: to experience something pleasurable, valuable, or to do something good or valuable, which we can enjoy and find pleasure in doing it, or see that this is creative. And if nothing goes, the attitudinal value, the changing myself and the referral to my deep relationship to life. That the background of this third category is that I have a feeling for the quality of life. That I have a deep feeling that life in itself must be something good. Maybe my own life is not that good as it could be, but it could be good. And I connect to this capacity or possibility which is inherent in life. Attitudinal values. I now want to come back to something which I announced before. That dealing with a difficult life situation needs a specific attitude. So far we spoke about meaning, meaninglessness, what it means, categories of meaning, and now I want to speak about a specific dynamic or a central key to find meaning in one's life. It is still I'm still taking Frankl's logotherapy notion about meaning and finding and working with meaning. The attitude or the key, the general key to find meaning is a certain openness. An openness, we would say today, a mindfulness on the one hand, and an openness towards, a phenomenological openness towards what is there. Frankl called it existential turn. To find meaning in every life situation, to heighten the probability to find some meaning, means to make a special turn in the attitude. Normally, most people, or we normally go through the world and through our lives by thinking, what does it, by looking at where do I gain, where do I get something? When I do this, what do I get for that? And this is an appropriate and important attitude. But sometimes we cannot find meaning if we get stick on this attitude, and it needs a turn of 180 degrees. And instead of asking what do I want from this situation, from what I do, when I do this, what do I get? instead of asking what do I want, to turn it around and to let oneself being asked by the situation in the terms of what does this situation want from me? I said, even with cancer, there is still life. For instance, what does this situation now want from me? What am I asked by this situation? And this attitude, this existential term, is valid not only in difficult life situations, but in all life situations. Because we are free human beings. This means we have to decide constantly. We must decide. We are not free not to decide. We are forced to our freedom because our freedom is essential to us. So whenever I am aware of something, this being aware means I am asked this basic existential question, what are you going to do with it? How are you going to decide? There's a chair. In principle, this is already a question, because this chair is like asking me, are you going to make use of me or not? How are you deciding upon me? So, as free human beings, we are always in this area of being questioned, being asked, of these possibilities which are around us, of which we can make use, and on which we have to decide. Therefore, we are constantly asked, and this is a very beautiful aspect of life, or view on our existence, because to be asked makes us important in our life. To be asked in a relationship means the other gives me an importance. When I'm no more asking the relationship about what are you planning for the weekend, when in the relationship the partner says simply, well, I go skiing, whatever you want to do, you can, if you want to, you can go with me, but I go. And if you don't, it's up to you. Being asked is relational, is opening space, is an invitation, or invitation of participation. And so our life, our existence, our world is a constant asking for invitation, if we understand and see ourselves that way. And this is not a myth or just euphemic understanding or so. It is a fact which derives from the anthropological understanding. Being aware that we are free in our essence, this means that we are constantly free, that we have constantly make decisions, that these making decisions is combined with an asking, what are you going to do? My life turns around me. Existentially seen, I am the center of the world. Every human being is a center of a world, of his or her world. And this world around us asks me, invites me to participate, to relate, and to give answers. And we cannot even not give answers. Because where there is a question, there is an answer. You cannot not answering a question. Whatever you do is an answer. Even if you do not give an answer, this is an answer. So we are in this dynamics, in this constant dynamics of dialoguing with what is within us and around of us. We are constantly in this speech of being asked and answering. Answering, if I give the answer in this total way, if I give the answer in an active participation, in actively giving myself in. If I give the answer totally, then we say we are really responding to the question. And when we are really responding, and it is really our answer, then we are responsible to the situation. So responsibility, this knowledge over thousands of years, means to give personal answers to life situations. Answer means it is free, it is not determined, it is my decision. To give an answer is speech, is dialogue, is open. And if it's really taking seriously what I have understood and give my answer in my active answer.
The time is now 8 o'clock. Listening hours are now over. Thank you and have a great evening.
So we ignore that, yeah? This is working hour, not visiting hour here. And if I give my answer actively in a deed or in an action, then I give my response to life, and I'm responsible. So being asked is very human. We can even understand it that way, or put it in that, or summarize it that way, that we can say being human means being asked. By the simple fact that human beings are not fully determined, but have a certain space where they can make decisions. Being human means being asked. And life, in what consists life? How does the human being come to life? By giving his answer to the situation. My answer normally is an act, what I do. By entering into this dialogue, this taking up this openness to what the situation asks me, to what life asks me, and giving my best possible answer, then I come to life. Then we can experience that this is a living, this is has a taste, this is a fulfilling way of being there and being present. We speak about the existential turn as the main key to find meaning. The central attitude. This existential turn in itself is mindfulness and openness. Openness, setting aside my goals, my ideas, my wishes, my plans. These are important for the daily life. But when we do not find enough meaning, then it is helpful to set them aside for a certain period of time and to look around and say, well, instead of constantly asking me, the world, what is valuable for me, what it can bring me and give me, I can now go into the other position and let me ask by the situation. And the situation may ask me, what life wants from me. And this is especially valuable when we have problems, difficulties, when something doesn't go the way we like to have it. Then to lay back for a minute and and look at the situation and say, well, what does it want from me? What is the chance, the challenge which can be connected or which is possibly connected with that situation? How can I contribute to improve the situation? What does depend on me? And this is so healthy. This is the reason why people are resilient. The central reason of resilience is to take situations as a chance, to see that meaning in the situation, that they want something from me. It takes me out of being a victim, or solely a victim. It takes me out from the paralysis. It is activating me on a modest level, maybe. But it makes me co-constructive in my own life, in the situation. And it gives me back my human dignity, the capacity to be present and to apply my freedom. Existential turn means coming out from simply being exposed to a situation into an active participation, a turn of 180 degrees of this normal attitude in which we go through the world, and let us ask by the situation. I now want to speak a bit, about 10 minutes more, about another central issue which leads to meaning in life and to lead to, which brings fulfillment into life. We said before that it is central for the human being to live one's freedom hopefully in a responsible way. This being free can be found in ourselves psychologically, experientially, in an inner resonance. This being free is very abstract, it's very philosophical, but if we look at this concept through a psychological perspective, we find a specific experience in which we realize this essence of the human being. If that what we do is really decided, is really wanted, is really corresponding to me, then I experience something which we call having an inner consent. Having an inner consent means I agree. Sitting here, you may apply it immediately. Do I have an inner consent to sit here? So, do I really want to be here? Or in other words, do I experience an inner yes to be there right now? Did I ask myself this? Maybe you say, well, this is something I do constantly. This is very normal to ask myself, do I feel an inner yes? Do I have inner consent? Am I in harmony with myself and the situation when I do that? Others may say, well, I'm not so aware about this. I'm not even sure if I have inner consent. The variety is quite big in this. But inner consent is something which cannot be made. I do not mean with inner consent a rationality, a calculation, that we logically come to an inner consent by saying, well, if I check all the possibilities I have tonight, this is maybe I learn most or whatever, or so. No, it is something which comes out of the mood. It is a sentiment. It must be felt, this inner consent. It is a felt, yes, it is more, in essentially, it's even more. It is an openness towards the inside, an openness, a mindfulness to what is going on within me. I'm exposing myself to a situation. Before I come here, I read or I hear about this, and then I imagine, I read the title, I see some description, and then I imagine, would that be something interesting for me? And then you, at least you who are here, you decided to come. This decision is more or less an inner consent. I say, okay, let's go there. Maybe it's not my consent, but my friend planned to go there, and then I said, and he said, come with me, and then I said, okay, if you want, and I go with you, and I have no better idea for tonight. It doesn't matter, so I don't care, I come with you. That's not a real consent, it's half a consent. It's more consent to the friend than to the presentation. Sometimes it happens that way, that we make decisions. Or somebody sends me, or a professor sends me into a lecture or whatever. Then I give more consent of not having a conflict with that person, but not what I really do. So this is very variable. Having made the decision to come here is more or less a consent. Then, while I'm sitting here, I'm constantly exposed to this having a consent or not. Maybe up to 8 o'clock you had the consent, but now, 10 minutes after 8, it's already too late. So, do I still have consent? And we say, having a consent is so basic, not only for meaning, it's basic more for something else. The result of living with inner consent is fulfillment, inner fulfillment. This is a form of happiness, of deep happiness. Having this inner consent, or looking after this inner consent, let me go back again, means I'm aware, I'm interested, I'm open to what comes up in me, what starts to speak within me, what resonance comes up when I am sitting here or when I'm reading about this conference, and I decide, oh, it appeals me, and I feel a resonance, say, oh, that could be interesting, and so I give my consent. And then I'm sitting here, and hopefully it is what I expected, or what I imagined. But if it's not, then the consent goes away, and it starts speaking within me, saying, well, that's not what I expected. That's not helpful. That's not. I do not see the value of what he's talking about, or I cannot do anything with that. Then the consent goes away. In the contrary, when it corresponds to me, when I find it interesting, then I have no difficulty to feel that resonance. That, oh, that's good. That's interesting. I can say yes to that. At least until 9 o'clock. You see, this is something I am in this openness, which we are as persons, we are exposed to resonances, or the impressions we have, the information we get, the experiences we make come into us and produce within us a resonance, connect with our life capacity, with our power, which is life, and brings up a feeling which says, oh, with that I am corresponding. This has something, correspondence with me. Then comes up that inner, yes, that's good. Yes, this corresponds. Yes, this attracts me. Yes, this has a value. Yes, I want to be there. And inner consent is motivating me, is mobilizing me, is this deep personal freedom coming out of my essence. I do not make it. I'm receiving it. I'm open. I'm mindful to what is going on. And then I became aware, or most often, I do not even think about it. I'm not conscious about it. I just feel it, and I feel harmony, and I feel energy, vitalize. This is inner consent. Inner consent is basic for fulfillment in life. Why? What happens when I do something with inner consent? It happens that I essentially am there. The essence of the human being, this being a person, means that we are able to make decisions, that we are able to use our freedom. In the consent, this comes out freely. I do not make it. I shouldn't even try to produce it. This goes wrong. I'm just accepting or taking up what is stimulated, what resonates within me. So we are much less controlling ourselves. And in the essence, we cannot control the freedom we are. We are detected by our life situation. And we detect ourselves in to what we find resonance and to what not. Some people find resonance to mathematics, and others to literature, and others to pottery, and so. And nothing. This is individually different. This essence is stimulated, and if we consider the inner consent and live with awareness of this possibility, then we bring ourselves much more into the world, because this essence is stimulated. And when I'm sitting here, when I do something with inner consent, something enormous arises. Engagement and commitment. Commitment means having inner consent. Otherwise, there's no commitment. Commitment, in the Latin word commitment, means I'm sending myself with my action. And when I do something with commitment, I'm really present. I bring myself onto the world. I'm repeating my birth in every situation where I'm committed. This is in line of being born, put into that world. Commitment brings up real presence in a talk, in a work, in listening music, in playing music, in reading, in writing, in jogging. I can do everything committedly. Being personally present. And when I do something committedly, I gain the most, because I'm there, because I'm present. And when I'm present and I do something valuable, committedly, then I am in full touch with the value. And when I'm in full touch with the value, this is fulfilling me. This gives me the most. And when it gives me the most, then it is filling me up. It is fulfilling me. This is the great gain. The gain of living with inner consent is to be able to do things with commitment. And the personal gain is to come to a fulfillment in life. So whenever people suffer from having from emptiness in their life, we can say, generally speaking, they do not live committedly. They do not live with enough inner consent. They should work on themselves why they cannot come to a real yes. This yes cannot be produced. It cannot be dictated from outside. Parents cannot do it, or bosses cannot do it. It must come out from myself. It cannot be forced. It can only be detected. I can only expose myself and get into touch. And then look what it says. And if I do not have inner consent, I shouldn't do it. Please don't do anything anymore where you do not have inner consent. Washing dishes or working or whatever. If you do not have inner consent, let it be. Because it's not worth living. It does not give inner fulfillment. Well, we can do functional life. We can, but this is emptying us. Only when I make myself present, I will be donated by life with inner fulfillment. And inner fulfillment is something which gives us so much. It gives us the energy to continue. It gives us a full life. It gives us orientation. Inner fulfillment is happiness. Happiness in life means having been there really, having been present. This is like the motto of the Olympic Games. Having been there is the aim. If this doesn't work out well, then of course we need a deeper work, because this inner yes is something very complicated. In many situations it works by itself, it comes out by itself, but sometimes it's so difficult. And we have contradictions and ambivalences, and we have anxiety and fears, and we do not see clearly, and we do not come to that feeling of inner consent. And if it doesn't show up by itself, we can help ourselves. And this describes the main theory of the actual existential analysis and the development after Frankl. We describe main structures of existence. There are 4 structures of existence which have to be considered, because they are all included in this inner yes. There is a first structure is the relationship to the world. I have to deal with reality. My life can happen only in this reality. It's not helpful for the continuation of life if I relate to my dreams or fantasies. They are nice, they are productive, they are creative, etc. They open spaces. But then I have to walk on this earth, and I have to eat and to sleep and to earn money, and the love may be as big as it is, but there must be something to eat at home. These are realities. We have to live with that. So this life has to take place amongst these conditions of existence. This means I have to take what is there, to accept, to endure sometimes situations. that I can be here in this world. So, having an inner yes means saying yes to my conditions, because under these conditions I can live only. I have to relate to the world, to the reality, to my body, to the physical things, to the economical things, etc. This is one dimension of existence, which is included in this inner consent. The yes to what is given. This means sometimes a lot of work to be able to accept what is there, what happens to me, and not to reject, not to live against reality. This is so effort-taking if we try to live against reality. And we are the loser, because reality is stronger than we are, of course. Another dimension of the human existence is the fact that we are living, that we are born and grow and become old and will die. The fact that we feel our life, that we experience it. We are not stones. We are from flesh and blood. So this experiencing life, we have to deal with that. So inner consent means also saying a yes to this joy and suffering, to pleasure and pain, to that what makes life, that what we experience constantly. There may be anxiety which inhibit us to say yes to life. So you see, there's another aspect which has to be combined in this quadruple yes, in this multifaceted yes in which we are. The third dimension of existence is the fact that I'm me. For the whole life, I am me. I'm never somebody else. I have to live with me. I cannot get separated from me. I cannot get divorced from me. This is difficult, yeah? Because divorce is sometimes a good escape. But with me, there is no escape except suicide. Of course, suicide is always a help. Yeah? I wouldn't suggest, but just in case you didn't know, I am constantly, and it's sometimes hard to be oneself and to live with oneself and and we can become guilty and we can become ashamed and we can have low self-esteem and not trust in ourselves, and be hurt personally and ridiculed. And who is me? Even that is a difficult question. Can I be authentic? All these big questions about personhood, personality. Saying yes, having inner consent means I'm in harmony with me. I have access to myself. I know who I am, or I feel at least who I am, what corresponds to me. You see how complex it is, this inner consent. And the fourth dimension is the dimension of meaning, of development, of future, of greater contexts. We spoke about this. This corresponds to the logotherapy which Frankl described. So these are the four dimensions of human existence. The relation to the world in which we are born, the relation to the life we are part of, the relation to ourselves as a person and to the other as a person, to that authentic being, and the relation to the greater context and future, to the development which is inherent in meaning. So if there are difficulties in coming to an inner consent, then we have to have a closer look on these preconditions of fulfillment of life, preconditions of consent. You have in this yellow sheet, yellow pamphlet, you have a short summary of these 4 dimensions if you want to have a closer look. And you also find in the internet, in the home pages, articles on this if you want to read more on it. And for those who want, I have brought 3, 4 books which you can buy here for $20. Yeah, this is what I wanted to talk about, and I wish and hope that we can continue and apply this and be maybe a bit more aware if I do have inner consent or not to what I do. If I do not have inner consent, that we take it seriously and try to change the situation, or stop doing it as soon as possible. The more we do with a weak inner consent or no inner consent, the more prone we are for depressions, for burnouts, for anxieties, for addiction, etc. The whole psychopathology can come out of this. The more we do with inner consent, the more fulfillment we will experience, and the healthier our psyche will be. And I hope and wish that this evening contributed to that in our future. Thank you for listening.
So we want to take a few minutes for questions. But if you're going to ask a question, you have a microphone in front of you. It's a little round metal thing. If you tap the bottom of it and it goes solid red, that means you can ask your question so we can all hear it. And then when you're through with your question, tap it again. If it's blinking, it means you're in the queue to ask a question. Okay? All right. So who wants to ask the first question?
Benefits of training in EA, if there are differences versus one of these behavioral approaches, if you think there are differences in the training.
The main difference between the ACT, Stephen Hayes ACT, Acceptance and Commitment Therapy, and EA, Existential Analysis, I see in the concept. EA is an existential concept, a personalistic concept, and ACT is a behavioral concept. So behavioralism is based on learning, and existential psychology is based on, coming from a philosophical background, is based on an understanding, anthropological understanding of the person. And so in our concept, we have different languages, which come close to, in the acting, come close to, in the different movements, come close in the acting. But we see it maybe even a bit more under the aspect of freedom than in the behavioral therapy, which is more technical, methodological, even in ACT, than in our application of this knowledge. Our application of this knowledge is very dialogical and phenomenological. This means really open and listening to what the client, the patient say, and trying to understand first. We do not apply any method. Only at a certain degree or later on we come to methods. I would see that the main difference. And maybe, this concept of living with inner consent and all around this is not so developed in ACT, whereas in ACT they have developed more technical tools than we did. So this can go together quite well, I think. And I see in ACT a real movement in CBT towards existentialist thinking or perspectives. Is this an answer to?
In terms
In terms of training, our training is central on developing their own personality. Because we know from almost all investigation about the effectiveness of psychotherapy that the main tool is the personality of the psychotherapist and not the method. The impact of the personality of the psychotherapist is 2 to 3 times as higher than the impact of the methodology. Therefore, our training is based on self-experience, on developing the own access to oneself and to understand better and feel better and dialoguing better, and not so much in developing the application of tools or methods or techniques. And this I see, I know Stephen Hayes goes in that way very much, so we are coming really close in that. But there are certainly some differences left. I do not know how elementary they are, finally, but some slight differences, I would say. Thank you. Yeah.
Before I ask the question, I just want to make sure I understand what you said. Life is self-intrinsically good.
Life is?
Life is intrinsically good.
I didn't say that. That would be, life can be very terrible too. Life, what I said was that I can personally feel that it is good that it is good to live, but there may be people who do not feel that. There are people who do not feel that. So it would become an ideology if we would say life is intrinsically good. My relation to life can be in a way that I can experience a quality in life. And life can have a quality which I can experience. I'm relating to this. It is a slight difference, which is in practice maybe not so big, but in theory it makes the difference between a psychology and an ideology.
If the quality of life is good, if you talk about the meaning of life, so is the meaning of life discovered or created?
Both?
Is the meaning of life discomfort?
Discovered.
Discovered or created? That's a very intriguing question you bring up again. Good question. These are totally different philosophies. In logotherapy, in the existential analysis, we have a concept of meaning of life or the meaning of a situation is given and has to be detected and is not created by myself. Whereas the constructivists, Watzlawick and so on, they say the meaning is created. The difference is the constructivism and most psychologists are projective. They are they see the human being as producing a concept after which he can follow, and in existential analysis we see the human being as an open being which has to understand in which he finds himself. This is this being in the worlds, in the Weltsein of Martin Heidegger, for instance, that we are there. We do not create the world, as the constructivists say. We create a certain understanding, of course. So in this we are close again. But ultimately, we are facing something which is different to ourselves. And with this difference, with this otherness with which we have to do, this otherness is fecundizing, is challenging, is speaking to us. So we really believe, or we think in our concept, that when we speak to somebody else, that I can encounter a being which is not me. Whereas in constructivism, I always encounter myself. I project, also in depth psychology, I project my needs, etc., and what I encounter in the other is my own projection. So it remains subjective. It remains built into the own bubble of the ego or the self. Whereas in existentialism, we see an openness which we try to make practical by the application of the phenomenology, of this letting aside, bracketing whatever is given as notion, as prejudice, as justice, as prejudice, as knowledge. Let them be, and let come in what you see, what you listen, what you perceive, and watch it, how it is for you. This otherness can come together with you. And then in this unity, out of this unity, you can understand what is going on. So the meaning of this situation, for instance, is, if it is real existential meaning, this needs that I am open to what is going on. If I only construct meaning, you have me to talk until 11, because it's meaningful for me. But it wouldn't be meaningful for the situation, because you get tired, you will go home, and I will be the last person in that room and not stopping my talking. But because it's still meaningful to me, that would be a projected subjective meaning, a created meaning. But the perceived meaning means that I may have different wishes, I may have whatever plans, but does it really fit into this reality? Is that corresponding to the others here? And to bring together the otherness and the own, to build that bridge, this means in a more philosophical and basic thinking, this means finding meaning. So, meaning must be detected, says Frankl, and not projected. And a projected meaning can never be an existential meaning, because what is projected from me does not have that much substance and basis and fundaments than something which is really in the situation and I can perceive, surely with some subjective interpretations and etc. So the perception of reality is a difficult issue, but that something behind that what we perceive is really there, we admit that. So reality can correct us. In difference to some people who say, I made up my mind, don't disturb me with facts. We should be open to correction through reality. This is basic in science. All scientific theory is just a hypothesis which is valid as long as it is not contradicted by reality. Therefore, Jonas says that natural science is in a constant crisis. Yeah.
How do you define reality?
What is given?
By who?
It's there. It is there. It gives resistance.
It gives resistance?
Yeah. It is resisting.
Who does it give resistance to?
It's being.
It's to.
It's being. That is the fact. The effect of being is that it is a substance, or it is not. It cannot swipe away.
Sorry,
I have to
didn't.
count with it.
It cannot. I missed that
I
part. It cannot.
swipe away.
It cannot be swiped away.
Swept away. Swept away.
So
Cannot
it's
be swept
tangible, like physical.
It can be, yeah, like physical, but this is then the physical reality, but let's say the economic reality is also a reality which we could not change in Europe in the last couple of years very much. Although many people have liked. So this means it gives a resistance. It has to be approached appropriately. This means reality. Yeah?
Well, I'm going to try to make my question. I've been thinking a lot. I read when I was younger, Rilke, Letters to a Young Poet. Well, I was thinking a lot about living with the questions, even though I don't have the answers. Things like that. And then when I moved on to Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning, these became like my two bedside books that I would keep reread. It helped me. And I'm reading now Erich Fromm, and again, it's really connects with me. So I'm finding, I'm mid-age right now, and I'm finding I'm at this place where I totally see what you mean, like giving myself birth, like a second, like living with all that. But I'm wondering, living with the question, finding what is the sense in me, and there's like difficulty and then also joy at the same time, the pain and the joy at the same time, and it's even greater. But the thing is, in North America, I don't know how it is. I'm experiencing that here in North America. I find this can be also a very lonely place because we live in a world of consumerism and finding our meaning outside, from outside. And then so this is a big I find a difficult place to be. So what advice would you have to I'm committed into what I'm, but sometimes I feel the joy and the pain is there, but sometimes I feel extreme isolation and loneliness. Even, that's what I'm. What would you say? Hang in there, or?
Yeah.
I don't know if it's particularly to North America because, that's why sometimes I cut the media, I cut the radio. I don't cut myself from the world. I'm with the world. It could be by walking in the forest. But I find this is sometimes the struggle into,
The struggle of to
there's
live in it.
There's an isolation, right?
There's an isolation.
It's the road. It's the path most difficult to travel. Living with the why for now until. So this is not an easy place, except to be, but it's not always an easy place to be, and it's not a place that is valued in North America. I find to be in a world where people say, "Well, do you have a home? You don't have a car? You don't have
I have the impression that you are a very sensitive personality, and you reflected a lot, you read a lot, and you developed yourself a lot. But you may apply the existential turn, for instance, right now, and ask yourself, well, I feel a bit isolated, and it's maybe difficult where I am. What could be my contribution? Not in North America, but let's say in my family, with my friends, where I feel isolated. What is this consumerism culture asking from me, wanting from me? How could I contribute? What could I do? For instance, bringing up this question may already be a step towards that. So don't give up, don't resign. Try to speak out what you experience, what you see, and to look at how can I find steps, a way, how I can make something to the better. And this is life then. Then you participate with your life. And you certainly have perceived something very valuable. And maybe with a deeper sense of what's going on than many people. And maybe you have the chance that you are not so occupied with making money than many others, so that you have the space to cultivate deeper humanism. And how can you contribute? How can you share your gain, what you gained with others? That is the big question. And of course, that is sometimes not easy to find an appropriate way. But this is a big challenge. And maybe you find one or other people with whom you can come together and work together. Is that a bit an answer to what you brought up? Yeah. We hope for the paradise, but we have to work in a dirty, hurting world, which has also its good sides, but also has many obstacles. It's a reality which is resisting us. Thank you for this.
Time for one last question.
Yeah, you had one before.
Seems to me that existentialism, you talk about stress on present moments.
Stress on?
Stress on present moments, to be in the moment. Do I understand correctly?
That you stress being present in the moment?
Yeah.
Okay. He's asking, do you stress, highlight being present in the moment?
Present in the moment, yeah, sure.
Okay. If that's the case, then is there any room for becoming? That concept allows that concept to becoming.
Becoming, yeah.
Yeah. So how to reconcile being and becoming?
Oh, yeah. This is a very good question. The whole concept of meaning is the way from being to becoming, from what I'm experiencing and seeing and doing now is now opened towards the future. And I participate, I contribute that what is becomes something else, becomes something better, becomes something more. That my knowledge on philosophy while I'm reading a book becomes more. So objects are becoming and changing. Relationships are becoming and changing. And through this, I am becoming. The essence of being is in becoming. Our essence is not that what we are. Our essence is that we have a potential to become who we really are, who we are ultimately are, to become more who we are. So we are in a constant process of change in the outer world, where we contribute, in the inner world, in becoming oneself. The becoming is the great chance of being ourselves. If we are not open and working on this becoming more ourselves, then we are dead.
So being is a foundation of becoming.
Yeah,
I understand
yeah,
correctly?
right. Being is the foundation of becoming.
So to become our accents.
Yeah.
So what's that?
To become our
Accents.
Essence?
essence.
Yeah. What's that? What's the meaning of that concept?
Becoming, I said, my being is essentially a process of transition to change, to grow, to have better access to myself. And that is the becoming.
Would there be any ultimate end of that becoming, that process?
I don't understand.
Are you asking, is there an ultimate end at of the process of becoming?
Yeah,
who you
the end is the death.
Yeah, but what's that?
What's death?
Yeah. What is the end of that process?
Yeah, death is defined biologically that this basis of our life, of our existence, is no more carrying us anymore. When the physical basis, the neurological basis, is no more functioning, then we disappear in that form as we are present. What is afterwards, we do not know as psychology.
The reason I ask that is one of my observations about life is a lot of people, they suffer because they have a problem to deal with death.
Yeah,
That kills all the meanings. So that's why they turn to religion.
yeah, Some
What's
of
the
them-
response to it?
yeah. Death kills all meaning. Some people suffer from this, and therefore they become religious, you say.
Yeah.
Or some,
Because
or
religion
some.
gives them meaning.
Yeah,
Ultimate meaning
yeah.
beyond death.
Yeah. If we are both mortal, nevertheless, you ask and I try to answer, and we are both here. Although we are mortal, and we find it to be meaningful. We do the best, not knowing what at the end eventually will come out and how it will be after death. But having a clear sense and a good understanding that this is interesting, this is good to work on it, this is helpful to try to understand. That is the existential meaning. This is the existential meaning remains meaningful also when I die, because it was valuable at the moment. The other question which is behind is the question for the ontological meaning, for the meaning of being. What meaning does it have that I exist, that there is a world, that there are human beings? What meaning does it have that there is HIV, or that there is cancer, that there are earthquakes? This question of this ontological meaning, this is not a psychological question. This is a philosophical question and a theological question. This is the question to which the religions give answer. The psychological question is the question to what can I do, how can I contribute to a meaningful life? This means this orientation. The ontological question for meaning is the question of what meaning is given to what exists When I have a pencil, I know the purpose and meaning of a pencil because I created it. But I didn't create the earth, I didn't create myself, I didn't create not even my children. So, to know what is the meaning of what is there, we have to ask the one who created it. And if it is by chance, we will not get an answer. And if it is by God, religions try to give us answers. And philosophical thoughts may help us to understand more. But ultimately, this is an issue of belief. And everyone has a belief in this. A religious belief, a Christian belief, a Buddhist belief, an atheistic belief. This is also belief. Nobody knows. So, we are like living on an island surrounded by the immensity of an ocean, which is much bigger and which we cannot encompass or embrace. It transcends us. This is the nature of our existence, that we are surrounded by a big ocean. And we have a sense of it, and this sense is called spirituality. We feel there is something bigger. May it be a cosmic feeling, or may it be a religious belief, or whatever. But there is something bigger, and we are not the biggest in the universe. We are happy if we can manage with that little that we are. Thank you.
Thank you for your question.